Hey everybody, welcome back to Discover SPRINGFORD. I'm standing in front of Chopper's Hair Shop on Main Street in Royersford Borough. Inside, I'm going to be sitting down with owner Nick Shumate, who spent years in the salon industry and ultimately decided to embrace authenticity and open his own barbershop right here in downtown Royersford. I'm Geoff a professional actor, part-time realtor, and transplant to the Springford area. And I'm on a mission to find the best that Springford has to offer. I'll be interviewing local business owners, civil servants, and other prominent members of the community to find out what makes Springford a great place to live, work, eat, and explore. I invite you to join me on my journey as I discover Springford. Nick, thanks for allowing me the time to come in and sit down for an interview with you.
Welcome.
So why don't we go back to the beginning? Tell people a little bit about your personal story, how you got involved in Royersford specifically, but also in the hair industry.
All right. Well, I've been a licensed professional for over 25 years, and it's a kind of a family trade.
Okay.
I didn't want to go to college. It wasn't for me.
Right.
I needed some direction. I took a year off and didn't know
gap year
what to do with myself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thought I was going to go to Monaco, but wasn't really into it. And Dad kind of said you need some direction,
right.
And a trade will always have something to fall back on, and you'll always be able to support yourself whether you choose to do it for a living or not.
Right.
Once you have a trade, nobody can take it from you. So that started my journey. Went to cosmetology school because in 1992 there wasn't really any barber schools around,
right.
And it was kind of a dying trade.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the natural progression was, end up going to cosmetology, working in a hair salon because there wasn't really any barber shops, and that's just was natural at the time. So I went to cosmetology school. I got licensed that. I went right back and took the teacher's course.
Oh, wow.
That took another 6 months to get the hours required to become a cosmetology teacher. And then I got licensed in that also. So I have 2 licenses in this industry. I did some teaching along the way, but naturally, I belong behind a chair.
Yeah.
I always had an entrepreneurial mindset, so I started my first business when I was 25, and it was a hair salon at the time. It was a big undertaking.
Yeah.
I really
for a 25-year-old, I can imagine.
And it was a large space too,
Yeah.
so it was
Where was
something Trooper. Right on Ridge Pike, not too far from here. I grew up in King of Prussia. I just kept kind of following the natural progression of people, moving away for affordable housing, first-time home buyers. The salon kind of fell into my lap. It was another person's salon that went out of business for varied reasons. I think health more than anything. Mm-hmm. And, somebody pointed me in that direction, and me kind of wanting to be an entrepreneur, just grabbed it, and went for it.
Right.
And actually, talked my dad into coming along with me as a partner.
Really?
And him and I ran Progression Salon for 10 years. And, we averaged about 10 employees. Most I ever had was 14 over that 10-year span. Had up and down levels of success depending on the economy. And, that was prior to 9/11 and, the first recession, and did really well a few years, did mediocre a few years, not so well a few years, and just even at the end, I kind of saw it be going in a direction that I wasn't happy, and decided that I needed to step away from that business and shut it down. Just kind of walked away from it, and that's kind of what led me in this direction. Was all right, now what? I went and worked for somebody else for 6 months cutting hair. That didn't work out. It was in a weird dynamic that after being my own boss for 10 years and being in a strange dynamic that I was uncomfortable in, because it was a husband and wife who were going through a divorce in the middle of the shop, and I kind of got caught in the middle. And
Make a great reality show on Bravo.
Oh, well, there's plenty of that in hair
sure.
salon environment, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But left that. A friend of mine got me a job, like pulling fiber optic cable and installing electronic equipment, and that was 2008. And
right at the bottom
it was really like, that's when, like I think I was on that job a couple months, and we were working at night down in DC. And I watched the stock market crash all day, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So I did that for a year, got laid off. It was all right. I'm good at pretty much everything I do because I put a lot of effort into everything I do. It's just the way I am.
Right.
So it was fine. I did all right, but then I got laid off for the first time in my life, and it was like, all right, I've never collected unemployment. Like, what do I do now? I knew this. I was like, all right, I guess I, kind of need to go back, just like my dad told me, I guess. In reality, it was like, I can always fall back on this. It was at a time when the barber business had been coming back for a few years, and I was always really good at this. I did this right out of high school, so I had like 20 dudes that I was hanging out with at the time who all wanted me to cut their hair, and I did it in my basement, or, like wherever, kitchen, basement, all my friends' hair, and was always really good at barbering and liked the dynamic of, BSing with men over things that I like to talk about, and, just having, I don't know, kind of like that last manly vestige left in life. There's not many left.
I mean, it's kind of like, you can let your hair down, for lack of a better term, and actually just be who you are, authentic a little bit.
Totally.
In the business environment, which is, like you said, you're always kind of on edge. Like, you don't want to turn this person away or offend this person. But to be who you truly are, sometimes there are going to be people that don't jive with you or don't quite see eye to eye on things with you, but to find a place where you can be who you are and be comfortable and attract like-minded people to come and sit in the chair, that's pretty cool, I think.
I agree with you 100%, and that was my total concept with this place was, I'm gonna make it me, and the rock and roll, the kind of the pool table, the very comfortable, laid-back environment. I always have music on. I don't have a TV on in here. I'm encouraging conversation between me and my customers. I'd like to focus on my customer, 100% when I'm doing it. Not to say that there's no dynamic where it kind of crosses between me, myself, like the customer who I'm with, and other customers that are in the shop at the same time.
Right.
But I'd like to focus on what I'm doing and put 100% into that, but also the customer and the conversation, and let them know that I'm focused on them. And I think that translates, because I'm making myself comfortable in my environment, and then, I think that makes them more comfortable, and then lets just that natural dynamic happen,
Yeah, so take me back a little bit. You had mentioned that you come from like a long line, it runs in the family.
Yeah.
What are some of the other relationships that you have that kind of led you into following in their footsteps?
Really, first and foremost, my father.
Okay.
He's a cosmetologist. That was kind of at a time when not many men were doing it, and he raised me. So this is the business that I grew up in. And I also, so I kind of grew up in a hair salon environment.
Yeah.
And was in a dynamic that was very creative, and he always was surrounded by people that were at the top of their trade, including himself. So that kind of made me part of who I am, because growing up in that type of environment, that's all I knew.
Right.
It was like, there was a competition around, like in the dynamic itself, that they drove each other.
Yeah, to get better.
And there was a competitive nature in this industry at the time, where there was a lot of competitions, and like a prestige level that you were shooting for on like a Philadelphia level and a New York kind of level. So I grew up in hair competitions and behind like the scenes, like behind the stage, kind of like that aspect of like cosmetology and hair and makeup, that you know,
saw like the nuts and bolts of it, not just,
just
the show
a
that you
different,
love it.
and you know, I kind of took to it, you know, like it just, I'm a creative person, not necessarily an artist, but like growing up in this business, it was all I knew, you know, and 99% of it is like, I can attribute to my father, so you know, and
That's
we
cool.
do have this in common.
Yeah,
it's one of the few things that we have in
I'm
common.
sure everybody has.
But
their own
it's
unique
like
personality and
it definitely, you know, steered me in this direction and has ultimately led me to here, and I thankfully thriving actually. You know,
that's
so
really great to hear.
It's a great place to be in. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So how did it come about? Like when you, you know, you worked in a salon, and you, like you had mentioned, barbering was not the industry that it is today, and as far as it, you know, on an attention standpoint, like there's a lot more attention on barbershops and things like that. They've kind of gone through a rebirth or renaissance late. What was it like going into that? I mean, obviously you had your family support, but like, was it a challenge to step into an environment where you kind of felt that it wasn't geared towards someone with your interests and skill set? In terms of focusing on men's style, men's grooming, or did you kind of embrace that?
I think that it was something that I liked and took to because of like having a bunch of male friends and doing that from day one, but also having a different skill set of, you know, knowing how to cut and color female hair, and adding the kind of the two together is kind of forged who I am now, is like having the barbering skills because I educated myself on that along with the cosmetology, hair salon environment, you know, of like, you know, being very good like at cutting women's hair and styling, and then learning how to kind of cut hair a different way and molding the two together to form my own style, which is like I embrace, and I think that allows me to have a different kind of branding than anybody else in the area, is that, you know, I'm well versed, you know, and I also don't shy away from anything, you know, like, you know, I'm one of the few people that is not afraid to jump in, you know, and, you know, cut a black man's hair, a woman's hair, very short woman's hair, very long woman's hair, versus like also being able to, you know, super short barbering with men's hair, and then kind of having like yourself maybe a little bit more of a long, versatile kind of laid back men's hairstyle. I can do all of that, and that makes me unique in this industry, and I am like 100% about embracing that. You know, it makes me who I am, and, you know, like I think that's one of the reasons that I have a broad range of clients. You know, like I can cut, you know, like teenagers to, you know, men that are 65, super short military, to kind of skater punk rock, you know, like you know, I just embrace it all, and, you know, like I don't want to exclude anybody. I just want to be, you know, the best that I can be with whoever's in my chair at that time, and I think that translates. And
we mentioned that before we started. I think it's I would say a lot of times entrepreneurs, business owners, that's like a crucial part that's left ungroomed, for lack of a better term. Sorry, pun intended, I guess. But like, it's not cultivated in their business. They just think about the business, but they forget about like their own personal identity. And sometimes that, especially I feel like in this day and age, people are looking more for authenticity than like a real slick salesman-y kind of business model. They want to know the people behind it, which is kind of the purpose of this show, because I feel like people want to have an affinity with the person or the business they're patronizing, or the business that they're supporting. They want to know, you know, what you're all about. And if you are wearing it on your sleeve, like to borrow a term you used earlier, then, you know, the people that want to support your business are going to be attracted to come, and those that you know, there's another business out there for somebody else that might not necessarily fit with what you're doing, and it's a risk that you take as an entrepreneur, but I think it ultimately pays dividends, and it sounds like it has for you.
It totally has, and I think the biggest aspect of that you didn't happen to mention is that, like, I care, you know, like I care about the product that I'm putting out on the person, like the haircut.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I try and remember details of the conversation. I'm blessed with a good memory.
That's good.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I remember about the story of the person's life because I'm interested in that also. And that helps the comfort level of someone when they're sitting in my chair. And, you know, it makes me comfortable in that dynamic, and then also allows me to give 100% of, you know, like when I'm trying to cut and make them happy with the product that I'm putting out, which is very hard in this business.
I'm sure.
There's a lot lost in translation. There's a lot of professionalism that sometimes is learned over time, you know, like experience, and sometimes it's never there, you know, and then there's like, you know, like both sides of that, you know, the different levels of, you know, one's effort or how much they care or, you know, like their skill set. And I try and, you know, put everything together, you know, like, hey, this is a customer service business, so I am solely focused on that. And that translate to making sure that I'm trying to give the person in my chair 100% every time that they're in my chair, not just giving me a good haircut one time, you know, giving a good haircut, great haircuts, I'm sorry, like really, I want to give a great haircut. Let me impress upon that I try and give people a great haircut every time that they sit in my chair, and that repeatability is what I feel brings people back, and the, you know, that personal touch.
Oh, for sure. And the fact that, I mean, you're as we mentioned before, I don't know if we mentioned it on the camera, but you're a one-man operation. Yeah. So that level of consistency is something that you actually can have ownership over. Versus having 20 stylists and just, you know, churning and burning of some of the larger salons and corporate, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like you kind of, with anything, the bigger it gets, the less hands-on, the less oversight into the actual quality, and that's where you kind of do run into trouble because you can't keep it with the same passion, the same vigor that you have it every time you stand behind somebody and look at them through the mirror, you know what I mean? Like, so. I
think you just explained why that chair that you're sitting in doesn't have another barber in it, because I had the experience when I owned a hair salon of having 10, 14 employees, and, you know, like varying levels of passion, you know, varying commitment to their skill and their trade, and, you know, just, you know, a little bit of like a controlling nature on myself of, you know, like controlling what I'm putting out, controlling what the internet is putting out about me, because, you know, I've tried to create a brand, and you know, I have a good you know, following on the internet, I guess, or, you know, that's not a following, but you know, like the internet treats me well because people put it out there of all the things that we were talking about so far. And I'm afraid to put somebody in there that's not going to be as passionate, not have the, you know, mindset and skill set to back up the brand that I've created. And there's times when I could use help and would like help, but then I kind of go back to past experience and like, I'm comfortable just, you know, like being me and putting out what I can put out. And I don't know where it's going to take me. I probably do need to like hire somebody, but it's going to be select, and they're going to have to wow me and put as much into it as I put into it, because otherwise I'm just not going to stand for it. And because you know, I take my brand seriously. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. And the fact that you do have the experience to kind of draw off of, you know, hopefully, you know, it'll work in your favor, and that you won't be tricked into making a mistake that you would regret later. Because like you said, it's like welcoming someone into your family. You know, imagine coming in here and giving somebody, you know, trimmers and a chair that's theirs. That's a huge undertaking in and of itself, just and a huge level of trust that someone would have to earn to be able to stand here in Choppers and represent the brand that you've built. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up here on Main Street in Royersford from Trooper, you said, was where your salon was, and how did you, the time when you kind of were in that laid off period, and you know, you're thinking about, what do I do? Should I go back to my trade? I'm just interested a little bit in how this all kind of came to be right here in this physical location.
Cool. Well, I basically 2009 had done that other trade for a year, got laid off, first time collecting unemployment, kind of didn't know where I was.
Right.
Hadn't been in the industry that I basically had been in my whole life, for the last, 14 months or so. Just kind of the economy was in a tank.
Yeah.
Didn't know, which way I was going, and just kind of was embracing exactly what you said, this is what I know. Not really wanting to go back into the direction that I had originally been in. An old employee of mine had opened up a barbershop.
Oh, wow.
And basically was doing really well with it.
Yeah.
And I liked his concept, and I figured, his concept was very close to who I am as a person, outside of here,
Yeah.
and I was never comfortable, even in my own salon environment. It wasn't 100% me, and I kind of was doing that for over 10 years, learning as I went along of the entrepreneurial kind of train ride, and learning to be a businessman, learning about branding, never feeling comfortable in that other environment, really kind of feeling comfortable when I was more cutting men's hair and having the kind of, manly conversations about sports and music and politics and whatever, just wanting to be true to myself, and, just time to embrace who I was. That's really what led me into the barbershop aspect of it. I was looking for, once I figured that out, it was okay, now where and how. And I was, had some savings and was in a good position, was collecting unemployment and trying to figure out where and what I wanted to do at the time, and started looking for locations, and really wasn't having much luck.
Yeah.
And was looking all over for the right fit. Craigslist, was looking every day of all places, found this location on Craigslist. It was a too good to be true deal, kind of.
Wow.
It was all right, $199 a month, for now. I'm yeah, right, that's no way. So I think I looked at this over that ad for over 2 weeks of looking every day for a location, and kind of keep falling back to this, and all right, I got to call. It's still there.
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks and it's still there. So I'm going to call. And that was a Tuesday. I met here on a Wednesday, kind of looked at the place. It was all right, the deal's true, and it's a good, storefront. I think I can make this work. I didn't know that. Wasn't super familiar with Royersford.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the Phoenixville area, had watched Phoenixville grow. Mm-hmm. Grew up in King of Prussia and had watched Manayunk and Conshohocken grow. And I kept saying, just follow the river. Just follow the river. It seemed like the natural progression. So I'm all right, Phoenixville's starting to take off. And, this place is affordable. It's to me was the natural progression of where the next, town that was going to grow, the affordable housing, where businesses were going to be affordable, that I could afford to start a startup business, because I had no client base.
Right.
And I needed a place that I could afford to grow a business through attrition, which takes time, and having the experience in this business, knowing that it was going to take me 5 years to grow my business from a startup, I needed that affordability.
Right.
And this place allowed that. And it took me 3 months of doing a lot of the labor in here myself, that I kind of realized that how busy that Main Street was with people, the cars.
Yeah, the cars going by.
And all right, well, the cars are here, the people are here. They may not know that this is the next one, but I kind of had a gut feeling of, my own intuition saying, before Phoenixville took off, I said Phoenixville's the next one.
Yeah.
And then looking at this and saying, all right, I can afford this, I can grow my business, and I'm pretty comfortable in knowing that the way Phoenixville is going, that this is going to be the next town. And, you know, it's kind of coming together, really, is really that the town, the school district, you know, the vibe of the area and the growth of the whole kind of suburbs of King of Prussia, I call it at this point, you know, the 422 corridor. And, you know, it's basically, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying cocky, but, you know, like what I saw happen in all those other towns, I kind of knew that this was the one. I had that feeling, and I was willing to put my time and money into this town and location.
Right.
And I figured if I could grow this building, or I'm sorry, this business in the worst economy since the Great Depression, that when the town came around, I should really flourish. And it's kind of happening, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. And a lot of what you're saying is kind of what attracted me to this area as well when we were looking for homes, was just like, I didn't want to be in a Phoenixville, you know, I didn't want to be like following the trend. Like I wanted to be there and help grow it too.
Yeah, me too.
You know, that, you know what I mean? Like be on the ground floor, and you know, hopefully through the show and highlighting businesses like yours and stories like yours, it'll attract more and more people to see what's going on. What is the special stuff in the water that makes people in Royersford set up shop, stay, and invest in the community? And that's what I've been experiencing just in hearing your story and other people's, is the desire that people have to see this community flourish, not from like a selfish, like, and then I'll retire or whatever. It's like you just like, there's like a desire to see it for the shared benefit of everybody.
You got to care, man.
Yeah, right. And that,
you know,
and
like
just hearing about how you care about your clients and you remember the stories and those kinds of things, like those are the things that last. And when you're trying to establish not just a brand or a business, but like a legacy in a town or in a community.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah, no, but I think those are the things that are everlasting, I guess, is like authenticity, compassion, dedication, persistence, you know, all the things that we're talking about. Like those are the things that I think, you know, at the end of the day, when you get through all the stuff that we see on social media and all that, like all the stuff that steals our attention, it's those core elements that oftentimes are what we always are attracted back to kind of recenter us a little bit, you know what I mean?
I think that's what it takes to succeed also too, is everything that you just said, really, like, you know, all those attributes that you just, you know, reeled off there to me, you know, just that embodies success, you know. And so everybody, I know, hopefully me included, and the rest of the people who are investing in this town, school district, Main Street, you know, our school, our council members, you know, the business owners, you know, like everybody's, you know, kind of, you have to put your money where your mouth is at the same time, and be willing to put the effort out and, you know, stick around. And, you know, it's a long term, you know, like just getting the doors open doesn't mean breed success, you know, sticking around, putting that hard effort in, and, you know, willing to stick it out is, you know, that creates what you said is like a legacy, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, seems like a logical place to kind of wrap up a little bit, if that's all right. Why don't you let people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can find you on social media, online. You can give everybody the URL links and all that kind of stuff. We'll also keep them below the video so people can click out to them. It'll be on our website, but this is a moment for you to kind of just tell people how they can reach out to you.
All right, thank you. This is Chopper's Hair Shop. My name's Nick Shumate. I'm the proprietor. You can give me a call at 484-984-0941, and Chopper's Hair Shop on Facebook. My information's all out there on Google. There's plenty of Google reviews and Yelp reviews that kind of give you the idea of what I'm all about. I think that you know, I try and translate that to every person that sits in my chair, and, you know, you're welcome here. That's all I can say.
Awesome, man. Well, Nick, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode of Discover Springford. I want to thank you for watching, and I also want to thank Nick for allowing me to come in and film the episode. If you'd like to find out more about Chopper's Hair Shop, then I encourage you to click the links below the video. And if you'd like to hear our full unedited conversation, you can do that by subscribing to the Discover Springford Podcast on any podcast app. If you enjoy Discover Springford and would like to support the work that we're doing to highlight the Springford area, then I encourage you to check out our website to find out the 3 different ways you can support us. The first would be by making a one-time contribution via PayPal, paypal.com/Discover Springford. The second would be by becoming a monthly supporter for as little as $1 a month. You can do that through Patreon at patreon.com/Discover Springford. And finally, we do have merchandise available for sale on our website, t-shirts and car magnets. Thanks a lot for watching, and I encourage you to start your own journey of discovering what makes the Springford area a great place to live, work, eat, and explore.